Hey there, before we dive in, don't forget to follow S Historia to catch this and all our future videos. If you enjoy what you see, please support us by subscribing, liking and leaving a comment. It really helps us out, so thanks a lot. Blistering heat, endless sand dunes and barren land where nothing can survive, right? Well, forget everything you think you know, because 5,000 years ago the Sahara Desert was a lush paradise of grasslands, lakes and rivers, and home to a mysterious ghost civilization that vanished without a trace. Our story begins in the 1930s, when a Hungarian explorer stumbled upon a cave in the middle of the Sahara. Inside he found something strange. Ancient rock paintings showing people swimming in a lake, surrounded by giraffes, hippos and crocodiles. At the time, everyone dismissed it as some symbolic scene of the afterlife. After all, who could imagine a lake in the Sahara? Fast forward about 70 years. A team of archaeologists made a groundbreaking discovery. In a rock shelter in Libya, they found 15 mummies along with baskets, pottery and everyday tools. To most people, that might look like prehistoric junk, but to archaeologists, it was a goldmine of evidence. These weren't travelers passing through, they lived here. And these weren't just any mummies, they were among the oldest naturally preserved human remains ever found, dating back over 7,000 years. 2 of them even had readable DNA preserved thanks to the rare natural mummification process, almost a miracle considering the Sahara's ability to turn everything into, well, jerky. For a while, scientists couldn't figure out where these mummies came from because their mitochondrial DNA wasn't much help. But with new technology, they eventually sequenced their full genomes, and what they found was strange. These people belonged to a human lineage previously unknown, isolated from the rest of the world for thousands of years. For decades, researchers believed the Green Sahara was a prehistoric highway, a fertile corridor where humans and animals moved between sub-Saharan Africa and the Mediterranean. But the mummies blew that theory apart. Their DNA showed no mixing with migrants from either sub-Saharan Africa or Eurasia. Their genetic line stayed pure for 7,000 years. Shockingly, their closest genetic relatives weren't their southern neighbours, but ancient Moroccan hunters and even men who lived in what is now the Czech Republic 50,000 years ago. They also carried only a tiny amount of Neanderthal DNA, about 10% of what modern Eurasians have. That's odd because Neanderthals lived in Europe and Asia, and humans only interbred with them after leaving Africa. But these Green Sahara people never left Africa. The leading theory is that their ancestors interbred with Neanderthals in North Africa 50,000 years ago before settling in the Sahara and cutting off all outside contact. Archaeologists also found cattle bones and tools made from stone and wood, showing they lived as prosperous herders. That raised eyebrows, since animal domestication wasn't thought to have developed in Africa at that time. If they didn't meet outsiders, how did they learn? Researchers suspect they exchanged knowledge with neighbouring groups, just the knowledge, not the genes. They drank milk, ate meat, and even used animal blood as protein. Thanks to their cattle and abundant water, they didn't need to hunt constantly. Still, they never married outside their group, maybe by cultural choice, or maybe because the lush forests and rivers of the Green Sahara formed natural barriers that kept them isolated. But this genetic time capsule nearly didn't survive. During the last ice age, the Sahara was even harsher than today, a true dead zone. About 70,000 years ago, even the toughest humans abandoned it, retreating to the Nile Valley and the Mediterranean coast when glaciers stole all the moisture and weakened the monsoons. Massive icebergs melting into the North Atlantic made things worse, triggering devastating droughts. So how did the Sahara turn green again? Around 15,000 years ago, as the Ice Age ended, Earth's axis shifted slightly, tilting the northern hemisphere closer to the sun. That brought more heat and sunlight, pulling moisture from the Atlantic and dumping it over the Sahara. The result was a vast savanna filled with lakes the size of small countries. This African humid period wasn't a one-time miracle. The Sahara has flipped between desert and green over 230 times since it first formed. Every 20,000 years or so, the climate changes. But even during its lush phases, the Sahara wasn't paradise without dangers. Crocodile-filled rivers, malaria-carrying mosquitoes and big cats lurking in the grass. made it a risky home. Most ancient people treated it like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Take what you need, then leave before the rain stopped. But the green Sahara lasted 10,000 years, giving our mysterious herders plenty of time to thrive. Then around 5,000 years ago, Earth's tilt shifted again, the rains ended, and the desert returned quickly. Many think the herders migrated to the Nile, helping pave the way for ancient Egypt. They weren't the only ones. Other communities thrived near lakes in Niger, leaving behind the oldest known Sahara cemetery, including a man buried in a turtle shell, a smiling man with filed teeth and a family forever locked in an embrace. Victims of the very waters that once sustained them. Eventually they too vanished. And then there's another mystery. The tomb of a royal doctor named Teti Nebefo, discovered in Saqqara. He lived about 4,100 years ago, during Egypt's Old Kingdom, serving as a healer, herbalist, and possibly the pharaoh's personal physician. His titles included scorpion priest, specializing in treating venomous bites, and director of medicinal plants, a role seen only once before in all of Egypt. He knew how to use herbs, roots, and oils for healing, sometimes combined with unusual ingredients by today's standards, like crocodile dung or acacia mixed with honey. He was also chief dentist, a rare title since tooth problems were rampant in ancient Egypt due to gritty bread and sand-filled vegetables. People even made primitive toothpaste, mouthwash, and dental prosthetics from gold wire. Teti Nebefu's tomb had no body, likely looted long ago, but its walls were covered in brilliantly preserved paintings, hieroglyphs, and mysterious symbols. His skills made him a powerful figure in a society where healers were also priests, scientists, and magicians. Ancient Egyptian medicine was advanced, with hospitals, specialists, surgical tools, and even prosthetics like a 3,000-year-old wooden toe. They treated wounds, set broken bones, performed surgeries, and may have even attempted to remove tumours, as skulls from 4,000 years ago show signs of surgical cuts around cancerous growths. In short, whether in the Green Sahara or the Golden Age of Egypt, these ancient peoples mastered survival, science, and healing in ways that still amaze us today. Back in the day, medicine in ancient Egypt was considered essential, and they treated it with the same respect they gave their gods. They believed illness could be both physical and spiritual, so a doctor might recite a spell while applying a remedy. And surprisingly, many of their treatments actually worked. Egyptian doctors were so respected that rulers from other parts of the ancient world, like Persia, sought them out. Even the Greek poet Homer once said Egyptians were the most skilled healers of all. Of course, their understanding of the human body wasn't perfect. They thought the heart controlled thought and emotion, and they didn't really know what the brain did. But their process, observing symptoms, diagnosing, and treating, is basically what modern medicine is built on. Sure, they prayed over wounds, but they treated them too. The most famous doctor was Imhotep, a true Renaissance man before the Renaissance even existed. He was an architect, priest, and healer who became so respected that people later worshipped him as a god of medicine. He lived about 2,000 years before Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine. Egyptians weren't just laying the foundations of the pyramids, they were laying the foundations of healthcare. Fast forward to the 18th dynasty, the golden mask of Pharaoh Tutankhamun lay hidden in the Valley of the Kings for over 3,000 years. Standing about 21 inches tall, it showed off the incredible skill and artistry of the ancient Egyptians, but no one expected X-rays to reveal some of its biggest secrets. Tutankhamun, King Tut, was the last ruler of his family line. He took the throne at just 9 years old and ruled for only a decade before dying unexpectedly. Later pharaohs didn't seem to care much about him. Even tomb robbers ignored his burial site. That's actually why we got lucky. His tomb was almost completely untouched when it was found in 1922, holding over 5,000 treasures. Among them, the most spectacular piece was his golden mask. The mask was meant to be an exact likeness of Tut's face, so that in the afterlife his soul could recognize it and return to his mummified body. Only years later did experts realize just how complex it was to make. The first X-ray images in 1967 were mostly for preservation purposes before the mask went to an exhibition in Paris. In 2007, newer scans revealed that it wasn't made from pure 24-karat gold, but from 23-karat gold mixed with a bit of copper. This made it softer and easier to shape. The gold sheets were formed by repeatedly heating and hammering them, but in 2015 another secret emerged, by accident. Museum staff were working on the mask when the long beard piece accidentally fell off. While examining it for repairs, they found a hidden golden tube inside, probably used to attach the beard securely to the mask. Then came a more controversial theory. Maybe the mask wasn't even made for Tut in the first place. A 2015 study suggested it might have originally belonged to Queen Nefertiti, Tut's stepmother. Beneath Tutankhamun's name, researchers found traces of an earlier inscription that could be translated as Nefertiti's royal title. Another clue: the mask has pierced ears. Tut likely stopped wearing earrings when he grew up, so depicting him with them at 18 years old is unusual, and might suggest it was intended for someone else, maybe Nefertiti or even someone unrelated to him. But the mysteries don't stop with the mask. Tut's entire tomb raises questions. Why would a pharaoh be buried in such a small, plain tomb compared to others? One theory is that his successor, Pharaoh I, deliberately erased Tut's memory from history and quickly buried him in a smaller, already prepared tomb, saving the grander one for himself. The decoration in A's tomb and Tut's tomb is strikingly similar, suggesting the same artist worked on both. If Tut's sudden death at 18 meant his real tomb wasn't finished, A might have taken advantage of the situation. In the end, the golden mask and the tomb of King Tut remain surrounded by mystery and intrigue. Every new discovery sheds a bit more light on what happened over 3,000 years ago, but ancient Egypt still has plenty of secrets left to reveal. And no matter how much we learn, Tutankhamun will keep fascinating the world for generations to come. Miles of yellow sand, bare